I stood in the hospital corridor, clutching Richard's pancreatic cancer diagnosis. The paper trembled in my hands, its edges sharp against my skin. Our children, Michael and Emily, could have saved him. But their response cut like a knife. "This is your problem, Mom." I sacrificed everything for them, and they turned their backs. That day I swore that they would pay. Their betrayal became my fuel, and I knew they would regret it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The doctor's office smelled of antiseptic, a sterile sting that burned my nose. I sat on a cold metal chair, my hands knotted in my lap. Dr. Larson slid the diagnosis across his desk, his voice calm, mechanical. "The treatment's expensive, Dorothy. Without funds, we're looking at months, not years." "There has to be another way," I said, my voice cracking. I leaned forward, searching his face for a shred of hope. He adjusted his glasses, unmoved. "There isn't." "I'm sorry." I grabbed the papers, my fingers crumpling the edges. "You're not listening. He's my husband." The words echoed in the small room, and I felt the weight of every syllable. The papers slipped, scattering across the floor like fallen leaves. I didn't pick them up. My hands shook too much. I stumbled into the corridor, the fluorescent lights flickering above. My phone felt heavy as I dialed Michael. He answered on the third ring, his voice clipped. "Mom, I'm in a meeting." "Michael, it's Dad. He's sick. Cancer. We need help with the treatment." I gripped the phone, my knuckles whitening. A pause. Then, cold as ice, "That's not my problem, Mom. I've got my own life." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the screen, his name fading to black. My son. The boy I'd stayed up nights for, the one I'd sold my car to send to college. Not his problem. I dialed Emily next, my fingers fumbling. She picked up, her voice light, almost mocking. "Mom, what's this about?" "It's your father. He's dying, Emily. We need money for his treatment." My voice broke, but I pushed on. "Please." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Take out a loan or something." "I'm not a bank." I heard the clink of a coffee cup in the background. "Be realistic, Mom." The line went dead. I stood frozen, the hospital's hum fading to a dull roar in my ears. I'd paid for her boutique startup, worked double shifts to cover her debts. And now, this. My children, my pride, had carved me open and left me bleeding. I pushed through the double doors to Richard's room. The air was thick, the monitors beeping faintly. He lay under a thin blanket, his face gaunt, his eyes half closed. I sat beside him, taking his hand. It was cold, fragile, like the man I'd loved for 40 years was slipping away already. The ring he'd given me glinted on my finger, a promise now heavy with loss. "I'll find a way," I whispered, squeezing his hand. He didn't stir. My mind burned with Michael's dismissal, Emily's laugh. They thought I was weak, a relic to be ignored. They were wrong. I left the hospital as dusk settled, the Ohio sky bruised with clouds. In my car, I clutched Richard's wedding band. He'd taken it off before surgery, his fingers too swollen to keep it on. It was warm in my palm, a piece of him I could still hold. On the passenger seat, a family photo stared back, Michael's graduation, Emily's wedding, Richard's proud smile. We were whole then. Now, it was a lie. I turned the key, the engine rumbling to life. My chest tightened, rage simmering beneath the grief. They'd learn what loss felt like. They'd learn what it meant to betray us. I pulled into the driveway, the house dark against the Wilmington night. The hospital's antiseptic smell clung to my clothes, a reminder of the diagnosis burning in my mind. Inside, I flicked on the kitchen light, its harsh glow exposing the truth: our bank account was nearly empty. Richard's treatment needed more than we had. I sank into a chair, my fingers tracing the edge of his wedding band, now tucked in my pocket. Michael and Emily's words echoed, cold, final. They'd abandoned us, but I wouldn't abandon him. I opened my laptop. The screen's blue light stinging my eyes. Our savings, $2,347. Not enough for a single round of chemo. My gaze fell on the jewelry box in the hall, where my own ring sat, a glint of sacrifice. Then the car keys on the counter, our old Buick, reliable but worn. I'd sold my first car for Michael's tuition, stayed up nights sewing Emily's prom dress. For them, I'd given everything. Now, for Richard, I'd give more. The next morning, I drove to the pawnshop in Dayton. The air inside was heavy, smelling of dust and old wood. A young couple browsed rings in the corner, their laughter sharp against my silence. I slid Richard's ring across the counter, my thumb lingering on its worn gold. The pawnbroker, a man with a sagging mustache, squinted at it. "200, he said, not looking up. "It's worth more," I snapped, my voice tighter than I meant. "It's all I have of him." He shrugged. "Take it or leave it." I swallowed, my throat dry. The ring wasn't just metal, it was Richard's proposal under the oak tree, his laugh when he slid it on my finger. But Richard was dying. I nodded. The pawnbroker counted out the bills, and I turned away, my chest hollow. Next, the Buick. The used car lot offered $1,500, barely enough to dent the hospital bills. I signed the papers, my hand steady but my heart racing. Walking home, the August heat pressed against me, sweat mixing with the ache of loss. I'd sold pieces of us, but it wasn't enough. Days blurred at the hospital. I sat by Richard's bed, the drip of the 4 counting seconds. His skin was paper thin, his breath shallow. I washed his face with a damp cloth, my fingers gentle against his fevered skin. The monitors beeped, relentless. I filled out grant applications, my pen scratching through forms that promised hope. But the hospital's bureaucracy was a maze, deadlines missed, signatures needed. "Just more paperwork," I muttered, slamming a folder shut. One night, I dozed in the chair, Richard's hand in mine. The monitor's screech woke me. Nurses rushed in, their voices sharp. I stood, frozen, as they worked. Dr. Larson appeared, his face grim. "We did what we could, Dorothy." Richard's chest stilled. His last words, faint as a breeze, "You did everything, Dot." My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. I squeezed his fingers, cold now, and let go. The room was too quiet, the weight of his absence crushing. I left the hospital at dawn, clutching his death certificate. The parking lot was empty, the air cool against my skin. In the car, a rental now, the Buick gone, I saw the family photo on the seat, its edges curled. Richard beaming, Michael in his cap and gown, Emily in her wedding veil. He'd worked nights to pay for their dreams, never complaining. They didn't deserve his love. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The engine hummed as I started it, my mind sharp with purpose. They'd taken him from me. They'd pay for it. The morning of Richard's funeral, I stood in our bedroom, folding his favorite suit. The navy fabric smelled faintly of his cologne, a ghost of him lingering in the threads. The house was too quiet, the absence of his laughter a wound. I smoothed the jacket, my fingers catching on a loose button. No one else would notice, but I did. I always did. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Harper, our neighbor, stood there with a casserole, her eyes soft with pity. "Where are your kids?" she asked, setting the dish on the counter. I forced a smile, my lips tight. "Busy, I guess." I didn't meet her gaze. The truth burned, Michael and Emily hadn't called, hadn't come. I pushed the casserole aside, untouched, and carried the suit to the car. The cemetery in Wilmington was small, the grass damp from morning rain. I stood by the casket, my umbrella trembling in my grip. The preacher's voice droned about family, each word a jab. I scanned the crowd, neighbors, old coworkers, but no Michael, no Emily. My children, the ones I'd raised, fed, loved, were absent. The rain drummed on the casket, louder than the prayers. I remembered paying for Emily's wedding, the way Richard danced with her, his pride lighting the room. Now, this. The umbrella's handle snapped in my hand. I didn't flinch. The splintered wood bit into my palm, a sharp reminder of what I'd lost, and what they'd thrown away. The service ended, and people shuffled past, murmuring condolences. I nodded, my face a mask. The flowers on the casket were wilting, their petals torn by the wind. I turned away, the mud sucking at my shoes. Back home, the house felt smaller, the air thick with silence. I sat on the creaking couch, a family album open on my lap. Photos spilled out, Richard teaching Michael to ride a bike, Emily's first school play. I traced their faces, my finger lingering on a letter tucked inside, a note from Michael, scrawled in childish handwriting, "I'll always be there, Mom." A lie. My chest tightened, not with sorrow but with something harder, sharper. I grabbed my laptop, the screen's glow harsh in the dim room. Emily's social media page loaded first. A new post, her smiling with a cocktail, captioned "Living my best life." My jaw clenched. She'd posted it yesterday, while I buried her father. Michael's profile was sterile, all business, photos of him shaking hands, closing deals. No mention of of Richard. They'd erased us. I opened a notebook, my pen scratching against the page. Their betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a debt. They thought they could walk away, untouched, while I buried the man who'd given them everything. They were wrong. I'd make them see, make them feel the weight of what they'd done. The clock ticked, the only sound in the dark living room. My eyes burned, but I didn't stop writing. Emily's boutique, Michael's deals, they weren't untouchable. I leaned back, the notebook heavy in my hands. This was just the beginning. The cafe in Wilmington buzzed with morning chatter, but I tuned it out, my eyes fixed on the laptop screen. Steam curled from my coffee, the cup's chipped rim rough under my fingers. Emily's latest post glowed, her posing with a designer bag, all teeth and sparkle. "Living the dream," the caption read. My grip tightened, the ceramic hot against my palm. Michael's page was no better, suits, handshakes, captions about closing deals. Their lives screamed success, but I knew better. Lies always left cracks. I scrolled, noting every detail. Emily's boutique had fewer customers in her photos lately, the shelf sparse. Michael's clients commented less, their praise replaced by vague questions. Weaknesses. I needed them. My block sat open, its pages already filling with names, dates, hints. The cafe cinnamon scent mixed with the hum of the espresso machine, grounding me as I dug deeper into their worlds. Marge, the town's gossip queen, slid into the booth across from me, her glasses slipping down her nose. "Dorothy, you look busy," she said, her voice syrupy with curiosity. "Just catching up," I replied, closing the laptop halfway. "Heard anything about Emily's shop in Cincinnati?" Marge leaned in, her earrings jangling. "Oh, honey, that boutique's quieter than a church on Monday. She's all flash, but I hear she's late on rent." She winked, sipping her latte. I nodded, my pen scratching in the block. Emily's debts. A thread to pull. I thanked Marge and left, the October air crisp as I drove to Columbus. Michael's office was in a sleek business district, all glass and steel. I didn't go inside. Instead, I lingered at a coffee shop nearby, knowing his old colleague, Tom, grabbed lunch there. Sure enough, he appeared, his tie loose, his eyes darting. I approached, feigning surprise. "Tom?" "Dorothy Clark. Michael's mom. Been ages." He froze, then forced a smile. "Mrs. Clark, yeah. How's everything?" We sat, and I steered the conversation carefully. "Michael's doing well, I hear. Big deals?" Tom's fingers tapped his cup. "He's ambitious. Maybe too much." He lowered his voice, glancing around. "Some clients think his reports don't add up. Off-the-record stuff, you know?" My pulse quickened, but I kept my face neutral, nodding as if it were idle chat. Tom spilled more than he meant to, words like falsified and audit slipped out. I wrote it all down later, parked in a lot a mile away. Back home, the house was still, the lamplight casting shadows on the walls. I spread my notes across the kitchen table. Michael, fraud. Emily, debts. The words stared back, stark and real. I taught them honesty, made them promise to live right. Michael, age 10, swearing he'd never lie. Emily, giggling as she vowed to make me proud. Where had those children gone? My chest ached, a fleeting question piercing the anger. Was I wrong to do this? To tear them down? I pushed the thought away. They'd chosen this. They'd left Richard to die, left me to break. I stood, the floorboards creaking under my weight. In the living room, I pulled the family photo from the album, Richard's arm around a young Michael, Emily's braid swinging. Their smiles mocked me now. My jaw tightened, resolve flooding back. I opened my laptop, the cursor blinking in a blank email. Anonymous. Untraceable. The words came easily, each one a step toward justice. I paused, my finger hovering over the keyboard. They'd feel this. They'd know loss. I pressed a key, the soft click loud in the quiet house. The library in Wilmington smelled of old books and wax, the silence broken only by the creak of my chair. I sat at a public computer, the screen's flicker casting shadows on my hands. The email was ready, an anonymous tip to Michael's clients, worded carefully, check his reports. Numbers don't lie. My finger hovered over the mouse. One click, and his world would wobble. My heart pounded, but a smile tugged at my lips. I clicked. Sent. The screen blinked, and I exhaled, wiping the browser history before slipping out. Outside, the November chill bit my cheeks as I walked to the supermarket. I needed milk, but I also needed eyes on Emily. Luck was with me, her friend Lisa stood by the cereal aisle, her cart overflowing. I approached, my voice warm. Lisa, didn't expect to see you here. She turned, her ponytail bouncing. Mrs. Clark. Wow, it's been forever. Her smile was too bright, like she was hiding something. We chatted, and I steered the conversation. How's Emily's boutique? Must be tough, with rent and all. I tilted my head, just a concerned mom. Lisa's eyes flicked away. Oh, she's managing. But yeah, it's tight. She laughed, nervous. I'll ask her about it, see what's up. Do that, I said, patting her arm. She's lucky to have friends like you. I left her there, clutching her cart, my mind already racing. One whisper, and Emily's perfect facade would crack. At home, I checked my phone. Emily's latest post was different, no glitz, just a vague rant about fake friends. I smirked. Lisa had moved fast. Then I searched Michael's name online. A forum post caught my eye. Anyone else auditing Clark's firm? Something's off. My tip had landed. Clients were sniffing around, asking questions. Good. Let him sweat. I turned on the radio, the static crackling as I chopped carrots for dinner. A news segment cut through, financial scandals rock Columbus firms. No names yet, but I knew. My knife paused, a thrill running through me. I'd done this. Me. The widow they dismissed. I set the knife down, my hand steady but my pulse racing. Then my eyes caught the family photo on the counter, propped against a cookbook. Richard's grin, Michael's gap-toothed smile, Emily clutching her teddy bear. We'd been a unit, once. I'd bandaged their knees, cheered their victories. Had I gone too far? Was this justice or vengeance? The thought gnawed, sharp and unwelcome. I shook my head, pushing it aside. They'd chosen their path. I was just showing them where it led. I pulled out my block, its pages creased from use. New plans took shape, names to contact, rumors to seed. The pen scratched, each word a brick in the wall I was building. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. Michael's name flashed on the screen. My thumb hovered, but I let it ring. His anger could wait. I wrote faster, the ink smudging under my grip. The ringing stopped, then started again, insistent as a heartbeat. I sat in the kitchen, a mug of chamomile tea cooling in my hands. The phone lay silent now, but Michael's voice message still echoed. "You're playing dirty, Mom," he'd shouted, his voice raw. "You think I won't find out?" I sipped the tea, its warmth steadying me. My hand trembled, just slightly. But my mind was clear. He was scared. Good. The block lay open, my next steps already forming. The doorbell jolted me. I opened it to find Emily, her coat damp from the December drizzle, her eyes blazing. She stormed past me, tossing her keys on the table with a clatter. "You've been talking, haven't you?" she snapped, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Spreading lies about my business." I closed the door, my face calm. "I don't know what you mean, Emily. I'm just a grieving widow." My tone was soft, but my eyes held hers, unyielding. She paced, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Don't play dumb," she said, pointing a manicured finger. "People are asking questions. My customers, my friends. You're behind this." Her purse slid off the couch, spilling lipsticks and receipts. She didn't notice. "Sounds like you're stressed," I said, folding my arms. "Maybe your books aren't as clean as you think." It was a guess, but her flinch told me I'd hit a nerve. I remembered lending her money to start that boutique, how she'd promised to pay it back. She never did. Emily laughed, bitter. "You're pathetic, Mom. Clinging to Dad's memory, stirring trouble. Get a life." She grabbed her keys, knocking over a vase. It shattered, scattering shards across the floor. She didn't look back as she slammed the door. I swept up the pieces, my movements slow, deliberate. Emily's anger was proof, my whispers were working. Creditors were circling her now. I'd seen a post about missed payments on a local forum. Michael wasn't faring better. His second call came that evening, his voice lower, threatening. "I know it's you, Mom. Stop, or you'll regret it." I hung up, my pulse steady. Regret was their burden, not mine. The next day, I drove to the cemetery. The air was cold, the grass slick under my boots. Richard's headstone was simple, the earth still fresh. I knelt, brushing dirt from the engraved name. "They're fighting back, Richard," I said, my voice low. "Blaming me. But they did this to us." The wind carried my words, and for a moment, I felt him there, his quiet strength. Then doubt crept in. What if this broke us forever? What if I ended up alone? I stood, my fists clenched. No. They'd chosen this fight. I wouldn't falter. The crows overhead circled, their cries sharp in the gray sky. I turned back to the car, my resolve hardening with each step. At home, the rain battered the windows, pooling on the sill. I opened my block, the pages damp from the storm. New names, new plans. Emily's suppliers. Michael's investors. I wrote until my hand cramped, the ink blurring. A clap of thunder rattled the house, loud as a warning. I didn't stop. They didn't know what I was capable of. Not yet. The rain drummed against the windows, a steady pulse matching my thoughts. I sat in the living room, the block open on my lap, its pages crowded with notes on Michael and Emily's weaknesses. The lamplight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the walls. Michael's fraud, Emily's debts, they were no longer just cracks, they were chasms I'd widen. The plan was clear: a newspaper would bury Michael, and creditors would force Emily to sell her boutique. My fingers tightened around the pen, the ink smudging under my grip. They'd underestimated me. That was their mistake. I drove to Columbus the next morning, the December chill seeping through my coat. The cafe was tucked between office towers, its air thick with the hiss of espresso machines and the clink of cups. I spotted the journalist, a wiry man named Greg, scribbling in a notebook. I slid into the booth across from him, my purse heavy with a folder, copies of Michael's falsified reports, left behind by his colleague in a careless moment at this very cafe weeks ago. I pushed the folder toward Greg, my voice low. "You'll want to see this," I said, tapping the papers. "It's about a financial advisor in your city. Big name, bigger lies." Greg's eyes narrowed, but he took the folder, flipping through the pages. "This is explosive," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. "If it checks out." "It will," I said, my tone firm. I leaned back, sipping my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me. He didn't ask my name. And I didn't offer. Anonymity was my shield. Back in Wilmington, I made a call from a payphone outside the library, the receiver cold against my ear. Emily's creditor was a gruff man, his voice like gravel. "Yeah, I know her boutique," he said. "She's dodging payments." "Thought you should know," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Her customers are talking. Sounds like she's in over her head." I hung up before he could ask questions, my pulse racing but my hands steady. The pen in my pocket felt like a weapon, ready to carve their downfall. That night, I checked my email at home, the laptop's glow harsh in the dim kitchen. Greg had written, "Stories set for next week." It's big. I exhaled, a rush of power flooding my veins. They'd feel this. They'd know what it meant to lose. I stood, the floorboards creaking, and passed the family photo on the mantel. Michael's graduation cap, Emily's wedding veil, Richard's proud smile. My steps faltered. What if this left me alone, truly alone? The thought was a knife, quick and sharp. I shook my head, shoving it aside. They'd chosen this path, not me. I stepped onto the back porch, the rain soaking my hair, my blouse. The block was in my hands, its pages softening under the downpour, the ink bleeding into swirls. I didn't care. The plan was in my head now, unshakable. They thought I was weak, a grieving widow to be ignored. They were wrong. I tilted my face to the sky, the cold drops sharp against my skin. A rumble of thunder answered, loud enough to shake the ground. I sat in the Wilmington Cafe, the newspaper spread before me. The headline screamed, "Columbus financial advisor faces fraud allegations." Michael's name wasn't mentioned, yet, but the details were unmistakable. I hid a smile behind my coffee cup, the steam curling like a secret. The cafe buzzed with chatter, patrons flipping pages, whispering about the scandal. My heart beat faster, a drum of triumph. I'd done this. The widow they'd dismissed had struck. The air was sharp with the scent of fresh ink and burnt toast. I folded the paper, my fingers brushing the rough edges. I'd expected satisfaction, but the thrill was sharper, almost electric. Michael's world was unraveling, and I held the threads. I left the cafe, the bell above the door jangling as I stepped into the December cold. Hours later, my front door rattled with heavy knocks. I opened it to find Michael, his suit rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. He pushed past me, the smell of wet wool trailing him. "You did this," he spat, jabbing a finger at me. "You fed that story to the press." I closed the door, my face a mask. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, my voice ice. "Sounds like your own mess caught up with you." He paced, yanking at his tie. "Don't lie to me, Mom. My clients are suing. My reputation's shot." His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the boy who'd promised to make me proud. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man who'd let his father die for a paycheck. "You made your choices," I said, folding my arms. "You left us when we needed you." He stopped, his shoulders slumping. "I didn't mean for Dad to," he swallowed, his voice softer. "Look, I'll change. I'll make it right. Please, Mom, call it off." His eyes searched mine, desperate. I stepped closer, my gaze steady. "You chose your path, Michael. Now walk it." The words were steel, unyielding. He flinched, as if I'd struck him. I felt a surge of power, but it was laced with something heavy, something I didn't want to name. Michael grabbed his coat and left, the door slamming behind him. The house fell silent, the echo of his footsteps fading. I sank into a chair, my eyes catching the family photo on the shelf. Richard's arm around Michael, both of them laughing at a long-ago picnic. I remembered Richard's voice, praising Michael's honest heart. Had I gone too far? Was this justice, or had I lost myself in it? The thought lingered, but I pushed it away. They'd betrayed us. I opened my block, its pages creased from use. Emily was next, her boutique was teetering, and I'd give it the final push. My pen scratched out names, dates, contacts. The phone buzzed, a message lighting up the screen. An unknown number. "You're next," it read. My breath caught, my eyes narrowing at the words. I sat in my car outside the house, the Cincinnati News website open on my phone. The headline was blunt: local boutique shuttered amid debt crisis. Emily's shop, her pride, was gone. Creditors had seized it, stripping her of her glittering facade. I traced the edge of the screen, a faint smile curving my lips. My eyes were cold, steady. She'd mocked me, called me pathetic. Now she'd taste loss, just as I had. The car smelled faintly of gasoline, the dashboard streaked with winter dust. I set the phone down and drove home, the Wilmington streets quiet under a gray sky. The victory was mine, but it felt heavier than I'd expected, like a stone in my chest. I pushed the thought aside. Justice wasn't meant to be light. That evening, a frantic knock shook the front door. I opened it to find Emily, her mascara smudged, her designer dress wrinkled like a discarded napkin. She pushed past me, her purse hitting the floor with a thud. "You did this," she said, her voice raw. "You spread those rumors, didn't you?" "My shop's gone, Mom. Everything." I leaned against the doorframe, my expression calm. "You built that shop on lies, Emily. It fell because of you." My words were measured, each one a blade. She laughed, a jagged sound. "Lies? You're the one sneaking around, ruining me." She paced, her heels scuffing the floor. "I didn't mean for Dad to. I didn't know it was that bad." Her voice broke, tears spilling. "Please, Mom. I'm sorry. I'll do anything." I watched her, my heart unmoved. I remembered buying her first dress, a blue thing she'd twirled in, her eyes bright with dreams. I'd worked overtime to pay for it, just as I'd funded her boutique. And she'd repaid me with scorn. "You lost us long before you lost your shop," I said, my voice low. "Justice doesn't bend for tears." Emily's face crumpled. She sank onto the couch, her sobs filling the room. My gaze drifted to the family photo on the wall, Emily in her braid, Richard's hand on her shoulder. A memory flashed, Richard teaching her to waltz, her laughter echoing in our old kitchen. My throat tightened. Had I broken something irreparable? Was this what Richard would have wanted? I straightened, my hand gripping the door handle. "Go, Emily," I said. "There's nothing left here." She grabbed her purse, leaving a trail of damp tissues. The door clicked shut, and the house swallowed her absence. I walked to the kitchen, the floorboards creaking under my weight. The kettle hissed as I set it on the stove, its steam curling in the dim light. My reflection flickered in the window, the family photo mirrored behind me, Richard's smile, frozen in time. I thought of him, of his quiet strength. He'd understand. He'd know this was right. The kettle's whistle pierced the silence, sharp and insistent. I stood by Richard's grave, the February breeze carrying the scent of fresh grass. Daisies, his favorite, rested in my hands, their petals soft against my fingers. The headstone was cold, its edges worn by winter. "It's done, Richard," I said, my voice steady. "Michael's career is gone. Emily's boutique, too." The words felt like stones, heavy but final. The spring sun glinted off the stone, and my eyes stung, not from tears but from the light. I'd won. We'd won. I placed the flowers down, their stems sinking into the earth. The cemetery was quiet, save for the hum of distant bees. I thought of Michael, now fled to another state, his name a whisper in Columbus. Emily had vanished from social media, her glittering posts replaced by silence. They'd paid for their betrayal, just as I'd promised. My chest loosened, a knot unraveling after months of tightening. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table, the news app open on my phone. Headlines confirmed what I knew: Michael's firm was under investigation, Emily's shop auctioned off. The world had moved on, and so would I. The house felt too big now, its walls echoing with memories I no longer wanted to carry. I dialed a realtor, a brisk woman named Clara. "I'm ready to sell," I said, my voice firm. She promised to stop by tomorrow. I hung up, the decision settling like dust. I moved to the living room, pulling family photos from the shelves. Michael's graduation, Emily's wedding, Richard's proud grin, they stared back, frozen in a time that no longer existed. My hands paused on one, Richard at a picnic, his hat tilted, his laugh almost audible. I set it aside, the only one I'd keep. The rest went into a box, their frames clinking softly. "We did it, Richard," I whispered, my fingers brushing the glass. My hand trembled, but my smile held. Justice was mine, yet the ache of loss lingered, sharp as a splinter. I stepped outside, the air warm against my skin. The block, its pages worn from months of planning, felt heavy in my hands. I walked to the trash bin, the gravel crunching under my shoes. One by one, I tore the pages, names, dates, schemes, and let them fall. The wind caught a few, scattering them like leaves. The sunset bled red across the sky, bold and unyielding. This was my time now. The paper rustled as I dropped the last sheet, the sound swallowed by the evening. I sipped coffee in the living room, the mug warm against my palms. The house was quiet, the boxes packed and ready for the move. A sharp knock broke the stillness. I set the cup down, my pulse quickening. Through the peephole, I saw them, Michael and Emily, their faces drawn, bags slung over their shoulders. My hand hesitated on the knob, but I opened the door, the hinges creaking. "Mom," Michael said, his voice low, almost broken. "Can we come in?" Emily's eyes were red, her coat creased. "Please," she added, barely a whisper. I stepped aside, letting them in. The air shifted, heavy with their presence. They stood in the living room, the space feeling smaller now. Michael cleared his throat. "We're sorry," he said, his hands fidgeting. "For everything. Dad, the hospital, we messed up." He looked at me, pleading. "I'm starting over, Mom. I want to make it right." Emily nodded, tears spilling. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. "I miss Dad. I miss us." She clutched her bag, her knuckles white. "We can be a family again." I stood by the mantel, the family photo behind me, Richard's arm around them, all smiles. Their words stirred memories, Michael's laughter at Christmas, Emily's hugs after school. But then I saw the empty chairs at Richard's funeral, their cold voices on the phone. My fingers tightened around the mug, the ceramic hot. They thought apologies could erase that. "You left us when we needed you," I said, my voice sharp. "You chose yourselves over him. Over me." I stepped forward, my gaze locked on theirs. "Justice matters more than your words." Emily sobbed, covering her face. "Mom, please. We're lost without you." Michael's jaw clenched. "We'll change. We'll prove it." His eyes searched mine, desperate for a crack in my resolve. I shook my head. "You lost us long ago." The words cut, but they were true. I felt a rush of freedom, like a weight lifting. Yet, as I spoke, Richard's face flashed in my mind, his hope for them, his love. My chest tightened. Had I broken something he'd wanted to keep whole? I set the mug down, the clink loud in the silence. "It's time to go," I said, nodding toward the door. Emily's sobs grew louder, but she followed Michael. Their footsteps echoed, then faded. I shut the door, the lock clicking with finality. The sunset poured through the window, painting the empty room in gold. I stood still, the quiet pressing against me. I was free, but the silence was louder than I'd expected. I stood outside the Wilmington house, the keys cold in my hand. The for sale sign swayed in the May breeze, its letters faded but bold. Clara, the realtor, loaded the last box into her van, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "All set, Mrs. Clark," she called, waving. I nodded, my eyes tracing the porch where Richard used to read, the window where we'd hung Christmas lights. The walls were bare now, the family photo gone, packed away with the past. I handed Clara the keys, their weight lifting as they left my palm. "You'll love Cleveland," she said, her voice bright. "Fresh start." "Time for one," I replied, my smile small but real. I climbed into my car, the engine humming as I left Wilmington behind. The drive was long, the Ohio fields blurring past, green and alive. Cleveland welcomed me with its bustle, a small apartment waiting, mine, new, unburdened. I unpacked slowly, the scent of oil paint lingering from the art supplies I'd bought. I'd dreamed of painting since I was young, but life, Richard, the kids, had always come first. Now, I signed up for a class, my hands itching to create. The first session was in a loft, the air thick with turpentine and possibility. I set up my canvas, the brush unfamiliar but right. I painted a sunset, its reds and gold spilling across the sky like the ones Richard loved. My hand shook at first, but each stroke grew surer. I saw him in the colors, his laugh in the light. The teacher, a kind woman with gray curls, peered over my shoulder. "You've got a gift," she said, adjusting her glasses. "There's soul in this." "It's for someone," I said softly. "He'd like it." My voice held steady, my eyes bright but dry. The canvas glowed, complete, a field under a blazing sky. I stepped back, my chest full, not with pain but with peace. I hadn't felt this in years. "This is for you, Richard," I whispered, my fingers brushing the frame. That evening, I sat on my balcony, a cup of tea warming my hands. The Cleveland skyline sparkled, but the sunset stole my breath, fiery, bold, like my painting. The city hummed below, alive and indifferent. I thought of Michael and Emily, their names faded like old news. They were gone, and I was here, whole in a way I hadn't been. "I'm home," I thought, the words settling deep. The breeze stirred, soft and warm, carrying the moment away. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.